Hi everyone. I just wanted to give you an update on how our daughter Charlotte is doing post-surgery and the kind of challenges and victories that we have been encountering in the last few months. So for those of you who don't know, Charlotte, our 4-year-old, was diagnosed with syngomyelia, a syrinx in her spinal cord at the beginning of the summer. She had a major neurosurgery done in the summer and has been recovering since then. We're at like 4.5 to almost 5 months post-op. Actually, I think we're closer to 5 months. So I just wanted to kind of let you know how things are going and like where we are in terms of recovery and healing and how her future is looking at this point. So for the 3 months post-surgery, things were going really well. She had regained her ability to control her bladder, was back in underwear. She was regaining strength in her lower body and started working on strengthening her upper body again. And she was doing a lot better in school for the first time. She was actually really excited to be in class and doing things at school, and she was making huge progress in just developmental areas where she had been really lacking beforehand. And then about a month into it, so like almost 2 months ago, she just started regressing really quickly in a lot of different areas. The first thing that kind of went was her ability to control her bladder. Only this time, it seemed to be less that she couldn't feel it and more that she just had to pee constantly, to the point where we couldn't leave the bathroom because she was peeing so frequently. So she is back in diapers. We're still in the process of trying to get tests done to figure out why that suddenly disappeared again, and it's definitely not for a lack of wanting to be toilet trained or wanting to go to the bathroom. She still frequently asks to put panties on and to try, and she does genuinely have to go to the bathroom that often, and she is now losing, I think, the ability to even feel it. She's had several accidents and didn't realize that she was even peeing. So those are just one of the things that we're trying to figure out what's going on. She also started regressing developmentally, in terms of what she was able to do socially, cognitively, how she was functioning. She was having increased episodes of just confusion, and then she started suffering with severe fatigue, and that has been progressively getting worse. A few weeks ago, we actually were in and out of the emergency room just because it had gotten so chronic, and it was very it came on very fast, and there didn't seem to be any relief. So we've been working with neurology. Her regular neurologist said based on exams that she looked perfectly healthy, which is amazing. I mean, that's incredible news. There's no evidence of any degenerative diseases that would affect her brain, which is what we wanted to know in here. But that still leaves this big question of, okay, what's going on, and how can we help figure out a way to make it so that she can function at school and function at home. Today she is, today as in like what we're dealing with on a daily basis, she is really struggling to cope with anything. The changes in her environment, having to wait for anything for any amount of time leads to very aggressive and destructive meltdowns. She is having issues cognitively, like being able to understand and process speech and language. Sometimes she has full speech, and other times we struggle to get sentences that make sense or words out of her. To communicate what she's actually thinking seems to be a major issue and process for her. But for the most part, her speech kind of like comes and goes. So there will be moments where we can kind of understand what she's saying, or she'll have full sentences. And then other times where we can't get any communication out of her, or any communication that's coming is jarbled and doesn't make any sense from a language perspective. She is also having severe fatigue still and frequent headaches. So we are having to pretty much do all of her care for her so that she has energy to play or energy to go to school. And the doctors really aren't sure what's going on. So we ended up seeing a recovery specialist, which her PT and OT referred us to, and she was amazing. It was such a helpful appointment for us. we felt really discouraged after her appointment with the neurologist because we were pretty much just left with, we have no idea what's going on, but and we don't even know where to send you at this point. So we just felt really lost and like we're really sad because we didn't know how to help her. We didn't have answers ourselves, and we were worried because we were seeing a huge change in her, and there was no obvious like direction as to like what was causing it. So we met with her new doctor, who's the recovery specialist, and one of the first things that she brought to our attention was that she thinks it's very unlikely that Charlotte had meningitis as a baby, which is what we assumed caused the syrinx. Syrinxes don't just appear. There usually has to be some form of major trauma to the spinal cord, or like an infection, like a meningitis, or what is called a Chiari malformation. There's no evidence of anything else that happened to her, and definitely no evidence of a Chiari malformation. So we just assumed that it was kind of like this meningitis that maybe we missed when she was a baby. But their doctor is very convinced that that couldn't have happened without us knowing, or doctors knowing, that she had meningitis. She would have had like severely debilitating disabilities from that if that had truly happened. So she is under the impression that Charlotte most likely has a genetic composition that makes her more prone to developing things. So like the syrinx, for instance. She thinks a lot of what Charlotte's dealing with right now could probably be connected to some form of genetic issue. So this means many things. One, we will be seeing a genetic specialist and getting a bunch of tests done. We will also be seeing a metabolic specialist to get tests done. And then we are also checking her heart, because her heart rate has been frequently very, very low, much lower than it should be. Especially when we were hospitalized a few times and overnight for some tests that we had done, they had to keep coming in because her heart monitors kept going off just because of how low her heart rate was going. So that's one thing that we're going to look into. If it is a genetic issue that maybe makes it so that she could get syrinxes like this, there's definitely potential, and her doctor thinks even probability that she will develop more syrinxes in the future, especially since she was so little when she developed her first one. She also thinks that whatever else is going on is probably muscularly related, so those things can also get worse with age, which is probably what we're seeing, especially because she has just recently gone through a growth spurt. So we were pretty much told to expect that her life is going to be really complicated, and we may see a lot of things coming and going. So going through seasons where things get really bad for a time period, and then maybe like she works through it and figures out how to function through it, and we, get better for a little while, and just to kind of like expect that up and down cycle for her life. Obviously, there's a potential that she could develop more syrinxes and other issues because of whatever's going on genetically. And once we figure that out, I think it will help a lot with just having more answers. But there's a chance that there could always be a lot of unknowns with her, and a lot of having to like be prepared to deal with other issues. So there's a lot going on. We're trying to figure out how to deal with life and like school, and like how to make things at home for her as comfortable as possible. There are some moments where she has super high energy, but it is really out of control, and other times where we have struggled to get her off the couch. So our life is changing very quickly. Trying to figure out and to learn. I mean, parenting's hard to begin with. Parenting a child that you don't really know what's going on and is so unpredictable. You never know what you're going to face on any given day. It is so difficult to know how to discipline, how to lead the child spiritually. So we're just kind of like trying to figure everything out to the best of our abilities. And obviously, we are so far from having this down perfectly. But we know that God gave us Charlotte for a reason, and that we were meant to be her parents. So we are trusting and just clinging to God through this, or at least trying to imperfectly. We also recognize that while the doctors and everyone is telling us or preparing us to accept that things will likely be very difficult with her growing up, we also serve a really big God. And from a faith perspective, yes, of course, maybe she's predisposed for these things, but that doesn't mean that she's going to get it. And even in the case that she does, God is going to equip us to be able to handle that. So I feel at first like all of this news is really overwhelming for both Alex and I, but I think the more like that it has sit in us and we've been able to process it and like really just pray over it, the more we're just being able to stay, step back, because we can't control this. We cannot control this. We don't have all the answers, and getting answers can be very slow and difficult, and there's no guarantee that we'll ever actually have all the answers that we're looking for. But can we come to a place of peace and faith and God and where He's put her in our family, and to just rest in knowing that He's got us and He's going to walk us through this, even if that means that our life is far from easy or far from what we expect. Through the season that we've been through this last year, like, it's been really hard. There's been a lot of uncertainties and a lot of fear for our daughter and just how it's going to impact and change our life. But in the process, God has done some incredible things just in our relationships, in our marriage, and in the way that we walk with our kids, but especially in our understanding of who God is and like how to rely on Him. There have been moments where our grief and our fear and just how overwhelmed we are or were with what we were facing with Charlotte, there were no words. There were a lot of times where I cried because I didn't have any words. I had no way to know how to even pray in that moment. But in those moments where we're just so overwhelmed and desperate for relief, God has met us in really like unexplainable ways. Very practically, just through the giving of the body of Christ, but also just very intimately in a relationship with Him, being able to experience like this supernatural peace and being able to have like just insight and wisdom in some areas that is not human at times. I think it's just been an extraordinary experience, and wow, we're terrified, to be honest, of her future and what things we will have to face and what things she's going to have to face and endure. We trust and believe that God's going to walk this with us, especially with the church and with the body of Christ coming behind us. So that's a lot to process and take in, but there is good news and there is hope in the midst of this. Charlotte is struggling, but she has good days. Today's been an amazing day. I've had to realign like my expectations, but in that I'm able to find ways to help her cope and to just have a very pleasant and relaxing time with her, which is amazing. It really is. We've been able to spend some really special and quality time with Evelyn and just ministering to her little heart and all of this as well. Alex and I have been growing together in our marriage, which has just been amazing, and we're getting to know the right doctors. Like, we're meeting the right people that will help us get these answers. And she has an amazing staff that's working with her through WEEP, her Wisconsin's Early Autism Project. They have been outstanding in helping our family to help her as much as possible. And then also her OT and PT, who have been really involved in her care, have just blown us away with how much they've loved us. And then our neighbors and our community members. Our mailman is awesome. He comes to our door every single day to deliver the mail personally to her and to her little sister. And it's just those small things that really make all the difference in our life. It's having community members and church members and like all of these different people who are just coming around us and loving us in very practical ways. And it's teaching us like how to do that in our life as well. Like, how can we love and like meet the needs of those around us in just really practical ways? It doesn't have to be these really big and grandiose things, but it's those small things that really do make the biggest impacts in those moments of like just intense suffering. So please continue to pray, because we totally don't have this thing down perfectly, and there's still a lot of questions and what ifs, and just pray that God's peace would cover us and He would continue to lead and guide us where He wants us and where we can be the most loved, and then to love the best as well in our life. And just pray over Charlotte's heart and all this. This is really big, guys, and it's really overwhelming for her at times, and for Evelyn's heart. I mean, she's very, very little to have to watch her sister go through this, and she does not understand what's happening a lot of the time, or why Charlotte has special like things that she gets away with and Evelyn doesn't. Like, it's really hard on her. So just ask for prayer that God would just really minister to her heart in all of this, and that He would give Alex and I wisdom in our parenting, because it is different when you have kids that have special needs and you have to be sensitive to certain things because there are just physical things that they cannot do. So that's all that's going on. We'll continue to keep you guys in the loop as we find out, hopefully get some answers. But in the meantime, in the season of just unknown, just rest assured that God is with us and that we're doing okay. It's hard, but we're doing okay. And we really appreciate all of your prayers and thoughts. And we'll talk to you later. Have a great Christmas holiday, guys.